Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of JCCAA, I would like to welcome you to the 2020 JCCAA Fall Conference for Professional. Today is the third week, also the last week of the Fall Conference, and it is one of the Double 10 celebration events. My name is Pei-Ching Tai, and I will be your moderator for today's conference, which will last about 2 hours. Before introducing today's speaker, I would like to go over some rules with you first. Please mute your microphones, but leave the camera on as we are going to take a group photos shortly. And please leave all your questions in the chat. Last but not the least, I would like to remind all of you that daylight saving will end today at 2 a.m. So don't forget to set your clocks back 1 hour so everybody get 1 more hour of sleep tonight. Now let's take a group photos. Please turn on all your videos.
Good, thank you.
Okay, thank you, James. Next, I would like to welcome JCCAA First Vice President James Hsu to give us a warm welcome remark. James, please.
Yeah, thank you, Pei-Ching. Good morning. I hope it's good morning to all of you joining today. If you are dialing into our conference from Asia, then it would be good evening to you. I'm James Hsu, currently the Executive Vice President of JCCAA. I want to take the opportunity to express my appreciation to all the committee members to make this fall conference for professionals happen and running so smoothly. It's been a very difficult time for many of us because of the pandemic, and for the committee members to work together and overcome all these technical challenges and the fact that we cannot getting together in person to have the conference. It's a great effort put together by the committee members. And also for our speakers and presenters, taking the time and walking through all the technical challenges and be able to present your expertise and insight for all of us to spend these 2 hours to learn. And that is the main purpose of our conference. I know the weather is awesome outside, outdoor. This is one of the best times in Houston to go outdoor, but for all of us to spend this precious 2 hours to learn from our experts on these subjects, I think it's the best 2 hours we can set aside and to help us grow. And today, this is the third and the last session of our fall conference. In our track, this is track 2, we were focusing on the other aspects of the work and life balance. And in the first session, we have 2 speakers to focus on parenting and education under the pandemic, and also how to keep our life in balance with our children. And then the second session of today's conference, we will be having Mr. Zhang to take us through some of the investment strategy and investing experiences that he would share with us. On behalf of JCCAA, I want to welcome you, and I would like to thank you for taking the time to join us this morning. Thank you. And with that, I will hand it over to Pei-Ching.
Thank you, James. So for today's conference, unfortunately, due to a scheduling conflict, Dr. Ann Song won't be able to join us, but we plan to invite her back for our future conferences. So many of you in the audience are parents to school-aged children, and the outbreak of COVID-19 has forever changed and interrupt many of our daily routines. And one of them is our children's education. During this time of uncertainty, parents and the children are facing their own challenges about future, jobs, health, and school. Educators too also facing their own challenges in teaching students virtually and in person. Our first speaker, Dr. Irene Lin Chan, will talk about school and lifelong learning during COVID-19 with the emphasis on class schedule in 2021, mental health, family relationship, standardized exams, college application, and many more other issues faced by school-aged children. Dr. Chen is currently a full professor at the Department of Urban Education at the University of Houston downtown. Dr. Chen has expertise in instructional technology for education. She has delivered many K-12 in-service training section and professional development activities for educators. Now let's welcome Dr. Irene Chan. Dr. Chan.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Irene Chen, and then I came to Houston in the early 1990s, and then I have been with University of Houston downtown campus. All right, so you saw my topic a little bit a while ago. I deal with teachers every day, and then what I'm going to talk about is the current status of education from probably kindergarten through college, and you can see there is a time limit. I can do this very quickly in a very brief model. On TV, you heard a whole lot of news about going back to school, the changes to school, the classroom setup, and then you heard the term POT. Actually, this has been the word POT. Okay, when you have this, you probably have the mental picture of the pots, the pea pots. That POT model has been quite long, has been there for a long time. Then in this pandemic age, the schools are going back to the POT model. You will see that those students whose parents opt to go back to school, they are arranged in the small set, like a few students will gather together, and then they will learn together with social distance, hopefully. So you will see the first picture here. Okay, then according to the current study, about half of the parents decided to have their kids going back to school, and the other half will stay at home. And they all have their own very complicated reasons with the parents' works and also the family members, the guardians arrangement. So it has been a very complicated decision for every single family. And then the POT is the current situation. So look at this. This is the elementary photograph, and in the middle, the students were brought out to outside. So hopefully the L and also the social distancing can be better in a more ideal situation. And then on campus, you will see that school campuses, they draw bubbles so that the student can sit within their own bubbles. And then on lots of the TV shows, you will also see this kind of bubbles everywhere. All right. However, this is the current status. And then this is not free, because when the schools change the setup configuration, it costs lots of money. And also the sanitizers, the PPE for staff members, those are also very, very expensive for schools. And then each school live with a very reduced budget. They have to spend extra money to deal with this extra expenditure. They put lots of burden on schools as well. The future is unknown. My point is here, the future is unknown because we have to adjust to whatever is putting on us, because now we are not the boss. Okay, we have to have this health concern to be the major factor for most of our decision. And then since I deal with teachers every day, I want to tell you a little bit about teachers. Okay, what is their perspective? What are their concerns? First of all, they have to be careful about themselves because they live in the house with other people as well. Many of our teachers, they live in a multi-generational household. They still do that, okay? With the teacher's pay, with some of the cultural, especially, Hispanic culture, many of our teachers still live in a multi-generational household, so that when they go to school, teach with students, when they go back to home, they have a whole lot to deal with, and their concern is there for themselves and also for their own family. And also with the part of the student online and the other part of the student in person, that means that teachers have to switch back and forth in these two models. That means they're doubling up their preparation time. And then many of the teachers actually have technology anxiety. You may not know that, but this is new to them. So not everyone love technology, you know, and then this causes lots of anxiety. I teach technology. I have been told by students in day one say that I really don't like computers. I hate computers. So there's a whole lot of things for the teachers to deal with. They have trainings to go through. They have to set up those Google Classroom. Those are totally new to them. Also coordination. This class is split in half. Then they can only have 10 students in one classroom with a social distancing. Then how do they deal with the other 15? So teachers in a group, they have to work out a schedule that fit everybody, that accommodate students and parents' need. So this is a whole lot of a complexity to add to the teacher's life. All right, then we move on. So the more recent concern would be like in general, this is school in general. We talk about digital divide. You heard that students didn't report back to school, never show up on distance learning class because they just don't have the device. They don't have the Wi-Fi. The parents may have a cell phone, smartphone, but it's just not robust enough for students to do homework, to receive the videos, and do everything they usually do in person online. So you lost students, I think HISD have lost a whole lot of students. They never report back, and that has been a problem. Digital divide means the have group and the have not group. And then if we don't deal with this problem to fill the gap, then there will be lots of our citizens or our students not well educated. Okay, if the pandemic lockdown lasts for longer time, we will have a more serious problem. And also, how do we call a teaching or a class is effective? And then there's accountability issue. The state will have lots of problems with how teachers are doing, how students are learning. And then I also show you this picture, okay, the property of the NYC. Lots of schools at my university, we have a plan of updating computers every 3 years, 4 years. They call this as like a computer cycle. Those outdated computer during this pandemic time, they have IT people refurbish lots of computers so that they can give out to students who reported, who fill out a survey, say that they didn't have technology to use. So I think this is a wonderful thing. For those people who have technology like IT skills, there will be a wonderful volunteering opportunity for them to say, okay, I can fix things. So tell me what to do. I can put together old computers and then we can give this to the student in need, okay? With the budget crunch, we cannot afford the new things, but we can always go back to see what we can do to help out. All right, so let me go to this slide. Then on the news, we heard that, wow, okay, students are failing and the failing rate is amazing. So I found this article from Channel 2, the KPRC Channel 2 local news, and you will hear some of the teachers' concern and also the students' concern. All right, report card during the first few weeks of school year, we see that more students than ever failed at least one class. I heard like a quarter of students have failed, to be specific, and also late with homework, and also skipping days, and also failing behind with reading. And you know that reading is the foundation of everything, okay? The 3 R, reading, writing, arithmetic, those kind of things. So the basic foundation could be a major challenge for teachers to keep up. And then this year, 2020, the state, they canceled the STAR exam, the standardized exam, but we don't know about the next year. And then if the state is going to offer the STAR, then how hard is it going to be? Is it going to be on the same level as previous years? Then we will see a whole lot of new problems at that time. Okay, so the standardized exam could be a major problem. All right, move on to parents. That we are telling parents or telling up parents are telling us that they have problem with the portal. You know, the portals are the things, the Canvas and also Schoology, that they are the platform for students to log in, and then they have the videos, they have the assignments right there. So some of the portal that you could see lots of technical issues, and also for students and parents. Parents, many times they are sitting by their kids when they do homework, when they are watching the teacher's lecture. So they found technology learning curve, lack of access, Wi-Fi, and also changing policies every day. Like you heard that school is going to open up on October 7th, they change to 16th, and then sometimes it just postponed again and again. And then that caused lots of confusion because arrangement for taking class could be a headache. And then students, because of that, they lost their focus to learn. Then think about the teachers again, okay? So teachers were told that do what you can to make sure kids pass. This is for K-12, this is for elementary through high school. But at the university level, college professors are heard of, we also heard of very, very similar thing, okay? Last semester, and also including this semester, we were told to change the class, the grading system to pass and fail, success, and then S and the U, success and unsuccessful, okay? So that means that we give more the room for students to, I don't know how to say, to feel okay about their own grade, not to feel too bad about their own grade, okay? So you can see this is a clear message from the state, and then in college, in higher education, we are also told very, very similar thing, not in words, just hint. And also the second point, encourage teachers to exhaust all measures to assist students. That we encourage students to report to school that I don't have technology, my home, I have patients to take care of. So tell the university, tell the school, so that we can predict what students are doing, okay? So now I want to show you. Now, this is the actual screenshot of a student's communication with me. I deal with future teachers, and also I deal with in-service teachers. Those are current teachers in my graduate school. And then you can see the highlight that I put on the email that they sent to me. Students are having parents to do their work, okay? And then also, I'll be back in classroom on this day, but it can change any moment. And also they are extremely stressful at the point, and I feel a little bit overwhelmed. And then this student has over 20 years of teaching experience. She's a wonderful technology savvy user, but she's still saying the same thing. So you can imagine the new teachers, the first year, second year, the new teachers, what they are going through, okay? As for the, okay, I will move on to the next one. For the message received by teachers, be specific. They lowered the standard to 70. I think it used to be 75, 80. Still, the state is raising the bar. Like in the past, 70 was okay. Then during the past few years, they raised it to 75 and 80, and now they are lowering to 70 again. Okay, 70. And then also Texas says no, 70 is a critical number, because this number decides whether student can attend sports, can be in the sports team, can also participate in extracurriculum activities, and also the university, our student teacher program, the teachers pass like a certification exam used to be 80. And then I don't know, maybe they are lowering it to 70. So you see that things are, I don't know how to say this. In the tough time, the state has to have changed their measures, and then 70 is the number now. It used to be 80. Okay, So now I'm going to go to my last slide. So in this kind of age, you have kids in school, and then sometimes they stay home, and you saw them, they are sitting in front of computers. What are they doing really? Okay, you know that teachers say that they wonder if parents are helping them with homework. You know that as Asian parents, we all are very concerned. We are really eager to help, but sometimes it's helping too much, and then it could be damaging to students' learning. The newer generation, I am a baby boomer, so I could see that the younger generation, the digital natives, they are very different from my generation, just to say the least. The newer younger generation, they are hopefully lifelong learner. All right. So one critical thing to be successful with online classes, distance learning, is time management. You could see that if you read the previous work, the message a while ago, you will see that our students turn in late work so that they miss classes. They all have to do with time management, right? Don't you think? Okay, late, time, put off. So that's the time management issue. Those succeed will be the ones who are really good with self-control, self-teaching, also problem solver, and also the ultimate goal will be lifelong learning. So let me go through this very last slide for you to know my point. I have included a few screenshot. You read this, the first one, my daughter, just think about my daughter who just graduated from college in May. Okay, she's working now. So I saw her doing yoga. I saw her starting from March, she moved back from her campus to stay at home. She crocheted a whole lot. So I have lots of new crochet project at home. Hand, craft, drawing. She learned from the internet. She went to Michael's nearby to pick up material. She come back, and also she cooked. I didn't know that she was interested in cooking at all, but she started to cook. And also she access to bring her guitar to her apartment now so that she can play music. So you can see body, hand, hand, hand. So hands become a more important item. I don't know how to call that, but they started to pay attention to themselves, what they can do in this the close down situation. Then I think this is a good thing because eventually this will build up to the lifelong learning attitude. This is wonderful. And then my two daughters, they graduated from college during the last 2 years. And then I would like them to be lifelong learner, even though they do not enroll in graduate program or professional program. But I will not be surprised that with the new kind of attitude they pick up during the pandemic, do craft, cooking, self-help, taking care of themselves, this is a good direction, okay? If we do not learn anything new or anything inspiring or bad things happen during the pandemic lockdown, at least this is one bright spot that I could see in my children's generation. All right, so this is my last slide, and I hope the time is fine. All right, so I will return back the camera to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. Thank you for pointing out so many different issues that families and educators will face and how to deal with them. And thank you so much for so many wonderful tips. And I think that can definitely ease some of our anxiety. Thank you again, Dr. Chen.
Thank you.
And many of you in the audience are not only parents to school children, but you probably also have a full-time job. So how do you balance your family and work lives? Have you ever felt burned out, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic? Our next speaker, Dr. Yvonne Lim Sada, will share with you some of her tips. Dr. Sada is currently an assistant professor and attending physician for the section of oncology at Baylor College of Medicine. Dr. Sada is a physician, an educator, a researcher, and also a mother to 3 young children, ages 18 months, 2 years old, and 4 years old. So how does she do that? How does she do all of these wonderful things? She will be talking and share with us about work-life balance and the children, tools for reaching an impossible goal. Let's welcome Dr. Sada.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me to this conference today. So unlike Dr. Chen, I do not have an advanced degree in education, and I'm not a pediatrician. So full disclosure, I'm only a full-time working parent with 3 young children who actually have not attended in-person school since March of 2020. So we essentially have a Montessori preschool in our house right now. So the things I'd like to talk about are a little bit about work-life balance, return to school, which is on a lot of parents' minds right now, some of our tips for finding balance, and then a summary. And I will say that I crowdsource knowledge because my children are so young from parents of with children of various ages to get many people's perspectives on this topic. So I think we all have to admit that work-life balance in general is hard, and I think even without pandemic conditions, it's a challenge. And I think there are moments where I've even said to myself, sometimes I feel like I'm failing at work and at home, and it's hard to feel like you're performing 100% at both. And I think parents are at increased risk right now of burnout, trying to maintain their job responsibilities and home responsibilities. They're at risk of exhaustion as they try to manage virtual school and work responsibilities. And I think in particular in 2020, all of us are at great risk of compassion fatigue. So this is a concept I learned about a few months ago in the context of healthcare workers dealing with incredibly sick people, many of whom were dying from COVID. But in this year in particular, given all the sort of social unrest, political unrest, natural disasters, wildfires, incredible hurricane season, I think we're all at risk of compassion fatigue, which is essentially where you are just emotionally tired of feeling sensitive towards what others are going through. And it's important to acknowledge that. And I think parenting has always been a full-time job. And I'd like to draw your attention to these 2 columns on the right for parents of children under 10. And you can see that at least 50% of women with kids under the age of 10 are having an additional 3 or more hours of responsibility at home. And this is a report from McKinsey on Women in the Workplace 2020. But I think it's important to acknowledge that men are contributing as well. You can see that 30 to 40% of men are contributing an additional 3 or more hours of day to the home. And certainly I have friends whose husbands have gone part-time or made adjustments in their schedules just to manage, for example, virtual school. Unfortunately, 1 in 4 women will consider downshifting or leaving their job in 2020. And there are concerns that nearly 2 million women may actually leave the workforce this year. Less than a third of companies have revised productivity or performance reviews in the context of the pandemic. And this is concerning because people are trying to do it all, but I think we have to understand and accept that maybe it's not possible to perform at pre-pandemic levels. So the Women in the Workplace report recommended the following company initiatives. Number 1, to offer schedule flexibility so that people can work remotely but also handle their home responsibilities, to revise performance and productivity reviews and to be transparent about what those are, to be clear about benefits, in particular mental health services, bereavement services, potential childcare services, and what are the policies on days off, particularly if it's related to family or COVID. Policy adjustments based on employee needs, and obviously clear communication from the leadership. And I think it's important that parents don't sell themselves short. So I had a meeting with a senior research person a month or 2 before the pandemic, and I sort of said to them, despite having, these 3 little kids, I'm going to go take a go at a new, research agenda idea. And she said, you know what, Yvonne, it's actually because you have 3 kids that I think you're the perfect person to do this, because to persevere and to keep at your career when you have children sort of says a lot about a person. And so I think for the parents out there, you are great multitaskers. You are people who can prioritize. If you can mediate an argument between 4-year-olds or 14-year-olds, then you can use those mediation skills at work. Hopefully you've developed patience as a parent, delegation. And I think it's important as you have children to find meaning in your work sometimes again, and to reflect on your work environment. I certainly know people who were fortunate enough to change jobs, many of whom did this after their first job. So I know people in architecture, finance, medicine, who before their second child was born, 2 of them actually changed jobs while they were pregnant. And they went from a non-family centric environment to a more family centric workplace. And I think the dividends have shown during the pandemic about the flexibility based on the culture of those new companies. At the same time, we have to be fair. So you have to communicate with your team. So certainly at the beginning of the pandemic, it became clear to me that my schedule would have to change to manage this preschool Montessori at home. And so I had a conversation with my boss, and I frequently check in to say, am I meeting expectations? Do you or anyone else have concerns on my performance? So if you are not actively receiving performance reviews, then I would suggest seeking them out. And always be mindful of coworkers who do not have children. We certainly have friends without children, and sort of to hear their side of it, to understand that, they have lives and commitments too. So I think Dr. Chen already discussed some topics on returning to school. But here's, I guess, my 2 cents on it. So clearly, school is critical for social development, particularly for children under the age of 10. We are seeing that students' grades are falling. I talked to many parents who have many generally high achieving children, and pretty much everyone said that their children are doing worse as far as their grades are this year. They're having difficulty, the children are having difficulty focusing on virtual school. If the parents aren't watching them, one kid fell asleep during virtual PE class. So, it's hard for kids. Some parents have reported, and pediatricians observationally have noticed, that there are many children who have increased anxiety now, depression, and kids who used to love school and perform very well are now saying to pediatricians, I hate virtual school. I don't want to log on. I don't like this, which is highly concerning because it's such a formative age. For some children, school was a source of breakfast and lunch, and so food insecurity is a concern. Unreliable internet, I talked to some students as well, and they said sometimes rainy days are tough because your internet connection is affected, and it's hard to be logged on. Some children are home alone doing virtual school because their parents are essential workers and are back to work, and so we want these kids back in school. And the reality is parents are burning out with 2 full-time jobs, managing virtual school and work. I do not have kids in actual school, but my friends that do, some of them have set aside the morning for virtual school. And for example, one person I know, her clinic runs from 1 p.m. to 7 or 8 p.m. So that she can manage the 2. So the cons, as Dr. Chen mentioned, many parents are worried about, for example, contact with grandparents, which is a very precious thing. Some people have had to let that go entirely. Or if you have a family member with a health condition, such as a respiratory condition or cancer on chemotherapy, that's a concern. Another con is that, at least in HISD, I'm told that busing is only available for special circumstances. So if you depended on bus transportation, that might not be available for you anymore. And the unpredictability of school closure or quarantine is a big deal. So as Dr. Chen said, HISD opened I can't believe it's only been 2 weeks, but last Monday, our elementary school opened and it was closed on Wednesday. So open Monday, closed Wednesday, reopened Thursday. And then we know someone who was put on quarantine this week for a suspected case. So in 10 days, that child has been out of school for 4 days. So, and with the quarantine, parents who are trying to return to work now have to take off work and it becomes very complicated. The model for some schools is that the child will basically sit at one desk all day, eat lunch in that desk, do all their classes in that desk, and that can be very hard for some children. The children's anxiety about the pandemic, so certainly every time we drove past the playground, even my very little children would say, "Oh, we can't go to the playground because of the virus." And now that we've started going to parks, we still socially distance. And now we have to say, well, it's okay to go to the park, but because of the virus, we can't get too close to other people. And so we have to manage the anxiety that children have about sort of knowing that there's this invisible thing that we've told them for months now is incredibly dangerous. And also, of course, there's variable mask compliance, I would say, from the kindergarten to high school level. We've certainly seen pictures on the news where students are variably wearing their masks. So, earlier in the fall, Baylor had sort of presented to the Baylor community what they felt were the ideal conditions to return to school. So this may be different from sort of other sources, but at least this is what the Baylor community was talking about. So the factors to consider were a reproduction rate of less than 1 for 14 days. So that's the reproduction rate is if you are infected with the virus, how many people sort of get the virus from that. And when I originally made this slide 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had an R value of less than 1 for like a 40+ day period. And unfortunately, over the past 2 to 3 weeks, that has eroded, and now it's been greater than 1 probably for the last 2 weeks. The community positivity rate has remained less than 5%, but the daily new case rate never was less than 200 in our area, and that has gradually been creeping up, and we're certainly seeing that in the Texas Medical Center now. So what are the conditions on the ground? So it's actually not reported anywhere, kind of, you know, how many kids are back in school. So I asked some parents, you know, some of whom sent their kids back and some who haven't. So these are all in HISD. So there's a 900 student high school, and it only has a 10% in-person return. So there's only 90 kids in that school, and they're all eating outdoors and they're socially distanced. However, the same family has a child in middle school, a 1,500 student middle school, that has a 49% in-person return. So there's 700 kids in that school. And those kids are actually eating indoors in assigned seats. And that school was closed last week for cleaning. There's a local 1,300 student elementary school with a 75% in-person return. So there's a lot of kids in that school. And then there's another 750 student elementary school with a 25% in-person return. So that school has 200. And so I can't imagine what it must be like HISD right now to figure out how to manage all these different conditions, especially when I don't think a hybrid model of virtual and in-person has been decided. And I think the other interesting thing is the students' perspective. So from what I can tell, you know, students are nervous, but in general, most kids want to go back to school. And I think we know that kids in general will do okay with the COVID. The issue is more the people around them, and again, their parents, grandparents, and anyone who may be sick. But actually, I have one friend whose kids are in private school. One went back to in-person, and the junior high kid decided to stay home, and I thought it was really sweet. It was actually because she enjoyed spending time with her mom, and they had sort of this routine because her mom's been working from home. And even though secretly I think her mom wants her to go back to in-person school so she can get more work done, I think it's a really precious time that we should embrace. And as hard as it is, I think we'll look back and remember some of the positive things about the pandemic. So the bottom line is, I don't think there's a right answer. You just have to make the decision that's right for your family. Many parents said, you know, for their kids, they say, we're just going to take it a day at a time, and you can always move between virtual and in person. And if it doesn't work out, you'll come back home. Unfortunately, we need to be flexible. And the last thing I'd mention is, if you're considering a conversion to a private school for whatever reason, and you haven't done so yet, scheduling a testing date will be incredibly hard right now. I know for junior high kids, I think somebody's testing in Plano because they could not get a testing site in Houston. So what are, just briefly in the last couple of minutes, what are my tips for finding balance, noting that my children are very young? So I think the number one thing I've learned is that you have to lower your standards of perfection. So maybe an A or A minus is enough. Like, we don't have to do A+ work all the time. Accept help. Certainly, I am very grateful for my parents for the help when, you know, there were months where we did not see them because the cases were high, and that was difficult for many reasons. But I think now if somebody says, "Can I help you?" They only have to ask me once. Mental health services, I think, are critical. I think as a culture and as a country, we tend to underutilize that. I'll even say it, you know, one day I called the mental health line available at my hospital, only because some days are really hard. And sometimes you just need somebody to say, you can do this. And it will make a world of difference. So if you have that available to you and you have days where you're feeling, you know, just challenged, I would encourage you to reach out. As hard as it is to find time for yourself, exercise, try to establish a daily routine. And for us, preset monthly deliveries through Amazon are amazing. We did that before the pandemic. So, you know, timed diaper wipe delivery. We never ran out of paper towels or toilet paper because we had them on time delivery already. I would say meal preparation takes up a lot of time. Again, I'm fortunate because my mom sort of helps us out with that too. But frozen meal prep is an approach, cooking in bulk. Simplify what you're cooking. And one thing I heard on the Splendid Table, which is a podcast, is to pick like an interesting ingredient and use that for multiple days, like pickled onions or sun-dried tomatoes, just to keep it interesting. These are salads that I bring to work, and my kids actually help me prepare them on Sundays. So if you buy a mason jar, unfortunately, you get like 20 in a pack. So, you know, we just layer it and then stick them in the fridge in the mason jar. It keeps it fresh all week. This is not me. This is one of my sister's good friends who's also a marathon runner. So, you know, she does this where she preps like a couple weeks of food, and you'll see that she labels on the bag like what the prep is and like how long it's in the oven and the temperature. So when she's at work, her husband will just pop a lasagna in for 45 minutes, and when she comes home, it's done. And they do baking activities with their kids. So they'll freeze like breads and things, so they have them available whenever they want. So for younger kids, you know, cleanup is not fun for anybody, but we do races and we just encourage them to participate in cleanup, even if it takes longer. We recycle materials for art projects. So if, you know, in the time when there were birthday parties, if there was a gift bag or something, we would, you know, throw that in so we could cut it up and use it for art at some time. A lot of kids are doing scavenger hunt walks, cooking together, educational apps, and sometimes we'll set Netflix or Amazon to another language. And I think I'm running low on time, but the last couple of things are for older kids. Every parent I talked to said stick to a routine schedule, but still be flexible. Get outdoors, do a family movie or game night. Play your kids' favorite music during chores, so maybe not your favorite music, but theirs. And some parents have been getting yoga balls and sensory cushions for their really squirmy kids during virtual school. So in summary, protect yourself against burnout. Return to in-person school is a personal decision, but the daily grind can be fun. Please, please, please get your flu shot and continue physical distancing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sada, for sharing your knowledge in the current working situation, also for your wonderful, useful tips in balancing the works and family life. Thank you so much. And that's really helpful during this difficult time. Okay, now it's a Q&A section, and we have several wonderful questions, and we have our two speakers here. So the first question is for Dr. Chen. So knowing the pandemic will last longer, what are the things to help to close the technology divide in our community?
For the technology gap, the digital divide, we saw a whole lot on TV already. There are actually groups of IT folks. They volunteer their time. The other day, I saw that some people are making desks, but technology is another thing that the people can volunteer. I can do something, okay? Then other people can do something. Find out those from your social network, from your community, so that you can contribute your time. In the past, Habitat for Humanity, they built houses for people in need. Then now is the time for those people. I really want to contribute my expertise, okay? I can deal with computer hardware. Then look for those groups, and then you can build simple device or refurbished devices so that the student can go back to use. And then if parents did not have those resources, they can, I really encourage the parents to spend money to upgrade their technology at home. You know that there's a shortage of laptop computer for a reason, because if the student do not have the device to get onto classes, they are lacking something. So this is my suggestion for volunteering and also for parents.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Chen. And the next question is for Dr. Sada. Since your children are so young, and what is your biggest challenge during this COVID-19 pandemic, and how do you overcome it?
So I would say I'm fortunate because we have 3 kids. I think if I had one kid, it would be a whole lot harder because they entertain each other. But I think sort of keeping them inspired and understanding that there's a whole world out there, even if for a period of time they were only at home. And so during a time when we couldn't do those things, really just focusing on activities that they wanted to learn about and focusing on art projects. And I think that the hands-on learning that Dr. Chen was discussing became so valuable to us because we started doing more music and art and puzzles and just really doing things with our hands.
And next question is for Dr. Chen. So with the challenging faced in the class schooling, do you see a growing trend for the parents to adopt homeschooling? Would that be a transition you would recommend? And if yes, why?
All right. Before the pandemic, I already have some church friends who have homeschooled their kids. One mom, she had four children, and they went through the whole homeschooling system. So it would work, okay? If they dedicated their time, that it would work. Except that if you ask me, do I think that I could offer homeschooling to my own children? With a Doctor of Education, I don't think I can do that, okay? Because the school experience has to do with the learning, the content knowledge, PE, for example, and also for other social emotional learning. I just don't think that I can offer this whole pack of complicated experience to my children, okay? Other parents feel confident, but for me, I just don't think I can do it. So overall, it's a personal decision. Sometimes the husband has a different opinion from the wife, and they have to compromise. They have to come to a family decision together.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. And the last question will go to Dr. Sada. What is the grandparents can help during this pandemic?
So I think for grandparents, one of the most important things is to be clear and honest about how you feel about children visiting. And so I think that is probably one of the biggest worries that parents have when making the decision to send their kids back to school. And some parents have just accepted that their kids have not seen their grandparents since before March, even if they live 2 miles away. And so I think it would be helpful for parents to know how their parents feel. If you are okay with seeing children, I think if anything, the pandemic has made us realize how precious relationships are. And certainly in the hospital, we have seen how things can change very quickly. And so I would encourage grandparents, if you feel comfortable, whether virtually or in person, just to spend time with those kids, because you may be the only person outside of their nuclear household that those kids are seeing.
Thank you, Dr. Sada. And can I ask you one more question for Dr. Chen? I know some of the school, they require the kids to turn on their camera when they are doing the virtual classes. But I know HISD probably don't require the kids to do that. So one of my friends said her daughter was the only student to turn on the camera in the whole classroom.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that? And does that make any difference? And is that important for the kids to be seen on the screen? So what's your thought on that?
This is a very interesting question. I actually heard of my coworker, college professors, they talk about it. College professors like students to turn on the camera because they like the interactions, the facial expression, so they know whether students understand it, and also for other students to see each other. So this encourages learning overall, because learning is just not lecture by the teacher, and then student receive it. It's like the whole interaction, student to student, student to teacher. However, there are some reasons for student to turn off the background. We have seen lots of interesting things, like the mom in the background, you know, okay, I don't want to talk too much about that, but the household, the background, sometimes could be embarrassing, could be inappropriate. Okay, even for school teachers, like the future teachers, some students, they told my coworker that they didn't turn on the background because they don't want people to see their house, okay? Because the clutters and also other things, inappropriate posters. Many students may not have a quiet corner for them to study. A while ago, I talked about building a desk, right? The volunteer building desk, because you may not understand, but some people just don't have a desk of their own, not even a quarter, not even a corner, not even a clean background. So they feel embarrassed. That's why they turn it off. And there are all kinds of reasons. This is only one. So teacher's perspective is different from students' perspective. And then we just try to be flexible and understanding. And you can tell students that, well, if you are afraid of the cluttered background, actually put on a background, a virtual background like you all do will be wonderful. Okay, so there are other options and the considerations. But when you think about students, they don't show their own face, you can really suggest a virtual background like this. That's my response to you.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. And due to the time, we will have to end our Q&A section now. And we are very honored and grateful for Dr. Chen and Dr. Sada for coming here today to share with their experience and the expertise in education and parenting tips.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Just in these, I think there's just in 1 minute, I saw one more question in the chat, which I think is very important. So I wish I knew the perfect answer regarding mental health services if they're not available through your workplace. But certainly I would encourage you to, as hard as it is, maybe even just mention it to your doctor. Virtual psychologist services are booming right now, so you can do it over the phone, over video. The other thing is apps like Headspace, which is a meditation app, so they've expanded their services as well, and I think many parts of the platform are free. So those may be some considerations.
Thank you, Dr. Sada, to answer that question. So we're really grateful for you for coming here to share with you with us your expertise and experience. And I'm sure everyone in the audience can benefit from all of your presentations. So here is a token of our appreciation. Thank you for coming here to be with us. And this is a little gift from our JCCAA committee. Thank you again. Thank you so much. And this hour's presentation has been recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube later. And we will share the link with you when it becomes available. So we are going to conclude the first hour, and we are going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you, and please come back around 11:03. Thank you so much, everybody, for your participation for the first hour. Thank you.